Hello, welcome to Comics Without Capes. Today I wanted to chat about comics that exist in an anthology format because I accidentally read 4 in a row and I don't often seek those out. I don't often seek out short stories. So I thought it would be kind of interesting just to chat about the different ones that I read, how I felt about them, and give you a little blurb, spoiler free, and then also just chat about how my opinions on anthologies have changed after reading 4 back to back. The definition of anthology can be a little murky, so my definition, what I'm going off of as how I classify anthologies in comics, is anything that exists as its own story per chapter and where the characters are not a through line. So while a lot of comics have like their own little stories per section or whatever, you're following a continuous story, or you're following continuous people, whereas the anthologies types that I'm kind of referring to are basically you're thrown into new characters, new situations, new stories each chapter. Hopefully that makes sense. So first I'm going to start with the ones that I went into blind, not knowing they were anthologies. The first one being Through the Woods by E.M. Carroll. I think they used to go by Emily and now they go by E.M. So you may see a different name. They are the same person. So this book is a compilation of short stories. They kind of have like a children's bedtime story vibe, but make it horror, make it creepy. It does, I would say, emotionally and tonally, the main feel that I got was just like a feeling of creepy-ish, a feeling of eerie-ish. And I won't say, like, I feel like I wanted a little bit more out of them, but I did really like the art style, and I did like the creepy, eerie feeling that each story kind of ends with. If you've never read any of E.M. Carroll's books or ever seen any of their art, I would recommend checking their website. They actually have at least one of the comics, at least one of the stories that is in this book is also available online through that website. So you can kind of see if stylistically, if vibe-wise, if you like the way that they do things, then I would recommend jumping into this book. In terms of how the art looks and the feel of it, it feels almost more children's booky than it does comics, but it does use like speech bubbles and stuff. In terms of audience, this was kind of written or catered towards young adults, but a lot of adults do read this. And it's a good, like, little short read with a bit of a creep chill fast factor. The other book that I went into, not realizing it was an anthology, was Boundless by Jillian Tamaki. And I honestly thought this book was nonfiction. I thought it was just like a memoir type book, which it is not. So it took me a little bit from like starting into the book to realize that I was reading a work of fiction and that it's kind of more of a like thought experiment-y kind of book. So I was a little lost when I started out. I really was not sure what the heck I was getting into. And it grew on me a bit. I will say it's not my favorite of the books that I read, but there were a few stories in there that I did appreciate quite a bit. The stories that kind of captured me the most were the ones that were more Black Mirror-esque, like where they take an idea related to technology and kind of expand on that as like a what if this happened with it. And then there was one other one that I did enjoy that was kind of just more sad, which I think is why I liked it. But yeah, I don't think it was all a win for me. I don't think I loved everything about it, but I did appreciate aspects of it. I didn't feel like the characters felt real enough to me, so it was more about the concepts of the story than me attaching to any of the characters. Jillian Tamaki also has a website, and on there you could peruse some of her comics online if you want to get a feel for her vibe and her style. Now going into books that I did know were anthologies. The first was a nonfiction, which is Drawing Powers, Women's Stories of Sexual Violence, Harassment, and Survival. This book has over 60 artists who have contributed to it, sharing their stories about sexual violence, harassment, and their kind of the aftermath of that. So there wasn't, it sounds like there weren't really any strict criteria in terms of how long it had to be or what it had to talk about. So this book is heavy. It is physically a big book, and it is also a heavy content book, as one would expect. But I do think it speaks to the strength of the comic medium for sharing difficult stories. And it also shows the variety in people, which I think is so powerful. And with the art style being different, with the way that their stories are told so differently, we are seeing all these people as individuals. And that is what's so cool to me with this book, is we are seeing individual experiences. We are seeing the differences in how people experience different things, in how people recover from different things, in how people take power back in different ways. I think that's what's really cool about this book. It's like very unified in messaging that we need to talk about these things, that these issues don't just go away, that this is talking about things that affect so many people in so many different ways. And I think that's what makes this book so powerful, is it shows how it's not any one thing, it's not any one person, it's not any one way that these things are happening. These things are happening in so many different places, so many different people are doing these things, and it's sharing that variety and it's sharing that reality. So highly recommend if you have the mental capacity, the emotional capacity to handle reading something like this. So the last one we'll talk about is Ice Cream Man. This is the only one out of the ones that I've read that is a series. So basically there's several volumes, and I think it's still going on. And each volume has different chapters. Every chapter is its own story. And there are cameos. There are little things that do show up from previous chapters, but they all are independent stories. And this is just such a cool series to me. If you like horror, if you like variety, this is so cool. I love the variety, but I also love the consistency. So there's like so much that it's doing, but it also has a consistent team working on it. So there's 3 collaborators, so a writer, colorist, and an illustrator who are all kind of working on this. And it seems like a really great team. I don't know how well they work together or whatever, but just like the way that they have made this look so consistent, but also it's always doing different things and it's always pushing the boundaries of what comics can do. I really like that because there's so much variety to the stories and the types of horror. There are different stories that appeal more to me than others. There are different stories that hit more for me than others do. I really love the existential dread ones that are in here. And I also really love the ones that just do something interesting with the comic medium. So this one is a palindrome where you can read it either from the first panel to the last panel or from the last panel to the first panel, and you will get the same story. So cool. And even some of the the characters that are in this panel speak in palindromes as well, which is pretty neat. And then there also is one that's like crossword based. And then one other one that I was a big fan of was this one where they have 3 different timelines that just occur on the same page. So you're just following 3 little stories at the same time. Just lots of different stuff that they're trying. Now that I have spent a little more time reading anthologies and appreciating what they can do and what they maybe can't do as well, I've realized that the ones that really sink in for me are often the ones that leave a feeling in me or leave me kind of thinking or reflecting. So they kind of invoke something in me. And it usually, like, it can be a very strong feeling, kind of even more so than maybe something longer that has a lot of things going on in it. It's really choosing to focus on a main feeling or a vibe and having that linger rather than kind of going through different feelings and vibes, like which a longer form graphic novel or a series may end up going through a lot of these ups and downs. These stories kind of give you that strong something in a short little package, and it's all kind of compiled, which kind of helps you to almost distinguish, especially if they have different like arts or different characters or something to differentiate them in your head. It almost makes those a little bit more memorable in terms of the emotion that you feel with it, at least for me. So I appreciate that there is a lot of power to short stories and to anthologies that I hadn't really considered. But I do think that they are an art form that some people do better than others, some people do differently. So it's not always going to hit the same way for me. So if I had to rank these books out of the 4 anthologies that I read and my emotional and what I got out of them, and which ones I like thought the most of, I will say I would probably put Ice Cream Man and the Drawing Power one at the top. The Drawing Power one was not an easy read. It was not an enjoyable read, but I appreciated what it did, and I appreciated that the art form of comics was a very good art form for this. Ice Cream Man, I loved the variety, even though not everything was a hit for me, even though some stories I didn't like as much as others, I still appreciated the other art aspects of it enough for me to still really enjoy the series as a whole. And I haven't finished all of Ice Cream Man. I've read 6 of the volumes so far. I believe right now there's 10, so I have a few more to read still. My third favorite of these is probably the Through the Woods book, in part just because the art was really cool, really creepy. It was less that each story was individually memorable in terms of the feeling, and more so that the book consistently had a creep feel, a lingering, eerie feel to it throughout every story. So there was just like, that was kind of the through line for it all. It doesn't stick in my memory that much, but I did appreciate the art a lot, and I did appreciate the creep factor. And then Boundless was probably my least favorite of the 4. I think just because there were things that I liked art-wise, and there were things that I wasn't so big on art-wise in that book. And there were things in that book that did have me thinking, feeling, reflecting. But there were also things in the book that did not really have me thinking, feeling, or reflecting. So as a whole, I think it was my least favorite. Not to say that it's bad, it just was not my favorite of all the books. I'm looking forward to hopefully reading some more anthologies in the future, just to kind of get a better idea of how I feel about them and to maybe get a little bit more of an appreciation of them. But right now, I don't think I have any in my queue. But I could be surprised, like I already was, with 2 of the ones that I read from this pile. So it's possible that I do actually have some more, but I don't think I do. So let me know if you have any recommendations, and I will try and check those out. Thanks for joining me. Take care. Bye.